Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 217 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. It's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and you probably noticed the cast is a day late this week. Usually goes up on Monday. That's because we wanted to make sure the full crew was here, and it is. We have Richard, the owner of MTG Goldfish. What's up, Richard?
Hey, Seth, what's going on?
Not much. We've had just an insane week of Magic, or weekend of Magic. So we have a ton to talk about today, and the reason we delayed today is we wanted to make sure that Crim, top 8 competitor of the Mythic Invitational, what a very good performance at the Mythic Invitational, just got back from the tournament. So we wanted to wait and make sure Crim was here so he could fill us in on all the insanity of the Mythic Invitational. What's up, Crim?
Hey, how you doing, Seth? Morning.
Morning. And first off, congratulations. That was, I said this on Twitter. When you told me you were playing double Esper, I was a little skeptical that was the right call, but it looks like history will prove your double Esper choice correct, because you had a really great performance at the Mythic Invitational.
Yeah, I was talking to a ton of the MPL members, and they actually were saying, I had actually a great choice, like a great lineup for this tournament. And I couldn't believe it myself. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was a little skeptical too. I was like, well, double Esper, here we go. But I tested enough and played enough to where I felt good about where I was. So I just, I showed up, and I kind of thought I'd go 0-2, but for some odd reason, I just kept winning.
The Magic gods smiled upon you this weekend, that's for sure. Well, before we get into all this Mythic Invitational stuff, the plan for today, pretty simple. Mythic Invitational to kick things off, watching it, and also Crim's experience playing in it. Then we're going to kind of shift gears into War of the Spark. We kicked off preview season. We got an insane new trailer over the weekend showing off the set. So that's going to be part 2 of the cast. And then, assuming we have time, we will get to fish mail as well. Probably be a long one this week. So before we jump into it, a quick reminder that our show today is brought to you by spikesacademy.com, the world's first Magic the Gathering e-learning academy. They got some really cool courses from really amazing Hall of Fame level players. So you can check them out over at spikesacademy.com and even get 10% off with the code Goldfish. And to learn more, check out Spikes_Academy on Twitter. So thank you to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk Mythic Invitational. So we'll talk about the viewing experience as well, but Crim, you started to kind of talk about your experience. Give us the details. What was it like playing at the Mythic Invitational? How surprised were you when you showed up and it was kind of like this real esports tournament with mirrors and like pyrotechnics like WWF style, and just fill us in on the behind the scenes of being there.
Okay. So, I had showed up the day before, and it was amazing, because, they were building the stage, they were doing all this stuff, and, I thought the stage looked great, everything looked sweet, and then when I actually, then they finally tested, the pyrotechnics, all this other stuff, and that was when I was my jaw had hit the floor. I was like, this is it, right? Then it really sunk in. For some odd reason, it was the sparklers, the pyrotechnics that made me finally feel nervous. I was like, oh, this is the big one. Okay, right? I came in, I was pretty confident, right? I was like, okay, this is fine. It's just gonna be another day. Just gotta play it like an F&M. Just gotta win 4 games in a row or something to make it to the next day, right? But then they showed off the fireworks, the big LED screen, and then I was like, oh, this is so much bigger than an F&M. And then I started getting really nervous. But I then centered myself, and it was so cool. It was nowhere else could you get this kind of event where you had obviously the top 32 players in the MPL, but at the same time, you also had all these MTG personalities, all together in the same room. And it was so cool. So the first day we were it was like me running around, fanboying over everything and then talking to everyone. And I was just like, hi. I think the funniest thing was Kenji actually made it a goal to say hi to every single player. So he was running around also saying hi to everyone. And, that was day 0, right? It's just a lot of just saying hello to everyone at all the competitors. And, for me, it was a chance to say hello to friends I haven't seen and, players I followed and never really got a chance to be in the same room with to say hi. So that was day 0. And then we actually got to see like day 1. I got to like prolong what I was saying was prolong my death, if you would, because I didn't play day 1, right? I played day 2, like of all the challengers, right? And so I got to watch everything. That was crazy. Watching it broadcasted, watching the crazy camera work. Like there were just cameras swinging around all over the booth. The entire casting team was super solid. And like Alias, Paul Cheon, David Williams, Marshall Sutcliffe. I mean, we knew these people were already amazing. We had Brian Kibler, day 9. And it was crazy to have that much, like, I don't know, star power, if you would, under one event. And like, that was when I was like, all right, well, I was at PAX, but for some odd reason being at PAX, I didn't want to do anything else but watch Magic. I literally the floor was on all there, and all I did was just stand right in front of the big screen watching everything with my headphones in to hear the audio, right? Like, I didn't even wander the floor really this whole weekend. I just played Magic and watched Magic. That's all I did. Because I didn't want to do anything else. And it was a weird feeling, once again, just having that esports thing settle in. And after seeing all of that, I went back, I went over to the tabletop area. I played a little bit of Standard with a friend and, just like kind of got back into playing Magic and, like competitive mode, and stopped just staring at everything in awe. And then the day started for me, day 2, and that was just, okay. Then I started getting sweaty. I was like, oh boy.
We saw you air drumming in the background several times, Crim.
Oh yeah. I started air drumming super hard. I was just like, oh boy. I was excited and I had my headphones and I was just like playing more music. I blasted it so loud. I think my hearing's probably gone. And I finally, after I was done doing my air performance, I finally got called up, and my first round opponent, being Thiago, Bellavio, who's my whole day, my whole bracket was there was the group of death, which is what group C was labeled as, because all the wonderful competitors there. But I felt like I had the bracket of death, if you would, in my group, because everyone I played felt like they were the 34th, 33rd MPL member who just slightly missed out or were MPL. So Bellavio being one of them, an amazing opponent. I 2-0'd there, and somehow I don't know how I 2-0'd. I thought he was just slow rolling when he's like, I hope I don't play against someone on Esper Control. And I'm like, well, I got some news for you. I'm on double Esper Control, so you're right. You did not play against someone who had only one. And it was a way different experience, right? Because we're used to just sitting down, right? Here's the match slip, play Magic, right? Play Magic, there you go. But I was on a Discord with my opponent. We had production teams saying, hey, hold your hand, don't do anything, wait around. And then it felt like every match was like a PT top 8 feature. I was just sitting there, and my first match wasn't even broadcasted, right? They told us to wait. And then finally, you get to communicate. And of course, it's the first match of the day. Neither of us really communicated all that much other than hey, I'm about to play some creature at Flash, so I'm making an announcement, right? So stuff like that. And then, I win, and then I my nerves just they went away. It just all went away, and then I felt like, okay, I'm back in the zone. I took my game 1 handedly because it was against mono white. And then I took my game 2 handedly because, it was the Esper Control, and, I got to study all the deck lists, and, I believe Bellavio was actually, either playtesting with the same group, of players that I ended up beating. I ended up beating the whole team, Bellavio, and then right after I had to play against the winner of Brad Nelson and Marcio Carvalho, which I played Carvalho next, and then I beat, Carvalho 2-1, and then, I think I ended up losing the next one to Gregor Kowalski, just slightly lost, where he decided to explosion me for 33 to the dome.
I think we got that on camera.
Yeah, it's like, finally a feature match. Can't wait to lose to Team of Reclamation, show people what I'm all about. And I thought, like, okay, this is where the wheels fall off. And I was like, okay, I had my run. I get one more. But then I take on Witch, I believe. I like, that's what I know him as from his username, a Japanese player. I believe he's on, like, Team Haruya. He's on one of the, branches of Haruya. So, that's why I called my bracket the bracket of death, because like these are all really good players. And, like but like my last match of the day was against Mono Green and Mono Red. And I could not have been happier. Like that was everything my deck wanted. Right when I saw that my opponent played, the 3 threats into my, Cry the Carnarium, I knew that this match was over. I knew the match was over. I didn't even, and it wasn't even my Cry the Carnarium out of my mono white deck, right? Like, or not my mono white deck, my Dovin's Acuity deck. So that means that the next match was Burn versus my Esper Acuity deck, which is the exact perfect matchup, which is what I brought it for. All the mono white, all the mono red decks. And yeah, sure, some of the mid-range decks too. Of course, I ended up losing that game, the second game, right? Like, I'm like, yeah, I'll lose, whatever. But then game 3, Witch goes for mono red again, and I go on Dovin's Acuity because I'm like, I don't care which of these two you pick. I'm going this one because Dovin's Acuity is perfect. It was a dominant victory. I saw chat. I watched the VODs to study my play and to make sure to see how I did and what I would change. And I read some of chat. Chat said I was fast playing somebody. if that somehow works. Like, cause like I was playing super fast. I was in the zone. And I was just dragging, dropping cards. I already knew exactly what I wanted to do next. And that was when I read somebody said, that feeling when you get fast played by the Esper player. and I do my speech, and it really just, like, I do my post game interview, which was hilarious because I was like, I told myself if I got to do any post game interviews, I would treat this like a sporting event. and it is a sporting event because it's an esport, but I meant like down to my interview. I almost wanted to see if I could find a bottle of water, pour it over myself, and then hold a towel over me, but I couldn't. And I was like, I was like, oh, well, like Becca, who was one of the commentators, she was amazing. I loved her energy, and she interviews me and she keeps the ball going, and I love it. Like, she keeps it rolling, and she's like, so I was like, hey, I came out today, made some plays. My opponent made plays, but I just gotta, go back and study the tape and be ready. And then Becca continues to, like, she's like, oh, so what can we expect from you tomorrow then? And I was like, well, I expect some opponents to come out to make plays. Hopefully I make more plays. and that was like, just like having fun with the event because
just focused on the next match.
The only thing, yes, for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Just Belichicked him. Good job, Crim.
Belichick. Like that was the thing though. Like it was surreal. Like this was it. This was magic as an esport. And like the only thing I was short on was just an intro theme song. I was like, if we needed one, I know I want Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme song from wrestling. That's literally, except I would come out and smash like two Dasani water bottles.
Pyrotechnics. We got it.
Yes.
Oh,
like,
goodness.
And I ended day one like amazed. I'm all right. I'm ready to compete the next day. Next day, I get paired up against Amazonian. One of my buddies, my streamer buddies, it was like, it wasn't supposed to be like this. She talks to me and she's like, yeah, I'm excited to play though. We're gonna have fun because how Amazonian killed it day one. She was like, the streamers won a lot. Like, despite the odds on Pinnacle, we were all supposed to just get mopped. There's this whole, like, narrative of eat the MPL, but it wasn't really eat the MPL. It's just like, wow, the streamers are winning? It just happens to be against a ton of the MPL, right? And, like, cause we were supposed to be obliterated. It wasn't supposed to be close at all. I was looking at these odds. And, I think one person, like messaged me. It's like, I don't know if you're going to win, but I got hopes and money on you. So I'm like, all right, word. Well, thanks, I guess. and it was just surreal to me. And like, I get paired against Amy and, this is what I wish was broadcasted. Like, this is the cool thing about what made the Invitational great. It was the fact that, outside of everything and including like the prize money, the everything, right? Just the whole spectacle side of it. But the fact that you got to watch, there were two streamers paired up against each other and it was all about like the content, really. Where like both Amy and I, the first thing we did was just start emoting. We're emoting right off the bat, nonstop. I know our match wasn't like broadcasted, but it was like nice. And Amy was saying, I really don't like. We were having a blast. We were cracking up. Everyone was like super stone faced, right? They were playing their opponent, but Amy and I were cracking up and like laughing on Discord, trash talking each other for fun, like, and at the end of it, like Amy was like, she didn't want to play me because she's on like tokens and mono white, right? And I'm not going to lie to you. It wasn't broadcasted, but it says I won 2-0, but really it was like I won 1.5 because I got lucky. I top decked drawing Cry the Carnarium right when I needed it. And as a buddy, merchant of mine would say, Magic is an easy game when you draw what you want. And that is correct. That is 100% correct. I drew exactly what I needed when I needed it. It was almost like I handpicked my draws. And after that was when I got paired against Andrea Mengucci. And, he might have won the whole thing, but, I think the one thing is like I beat him 2-0 and I hung out with him all day yesterday, right? Before we both hung out, it was, me, and Marcio and then Andrea Mengucci were waiting for our flights. We're talking about it. And that was when he talked to me. He's like, apparently like the interview is like the only thing he regrets is his one loss to me because I was the only person to beat him. And here's what the best part about it is. It's him. I talked to Andrea and Andrea tells me the reason why he lost was because when he went for a thought erasure against me, I revealed Kaya's Wrath, Cleansing Nova, some other removal spell, right? And on Discord, I'm like, haha, I can kill any creature you play. And because I said that, he was like, oh, he trash talked me. I wasn't ready, so I picked the wrong thing. He said because I said that, he picked Kaya's Wrath or whatever. And then he played Search for Azcanta, completely forgetting that I had a Cleansing Nova. And then, so he plays Search for Azcanta, I Cleansing Nova, clear it off, and he's like, I don't know why. At the end of the match, I told you outplayed me, and it was because of that sweet liner, that one-liner. It just got me, and I wasn't ready for it.
Now you know the secret to beating, eventual champions of the Mythic Invitational. Just bring the trash talk. They're not ready for it.
Yeah, emote, do what you gotta do. But it was like, it was trash talking them. And then I laughed and Marcy was laughing. Marcy was like, it doesn't matter. You were going to win anyways. And he's like, no, I was going to win that match. He's like, it doesn't matter. You wouldn't, even if you would have kept the Azcanta, his deck beats ours. And it was so funny watching like Carvalho and like Andrea hanging out and talking. It's just like Andrea's saying one thing. He's like, don't listen to him. He was going to lose anyways. And yeah, like that was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I beat Andrea Mengucci like 2-0. Like this is just like, I 2-0'd both my opponents today. Get paired against, Piotr, and like Piotr is just hilarious. He's exactly like, he's very like dry. He's got that dry humor, right? And like, he's very like straight faced and like stone faced, all that other stuff. But like, he is just a hilarious human being. It was like maybe 5 seconds after I had kept my hand, I decided to keep, and he immediately emotes, your go. That was when I knew this was going to be a good game, right? Like this was going to be fun at the very least, because I had a smirk, I was ready, and we just had an emote off. And like, I ended up dropping that game, and like, I dropped that match, but I had so much fun. This is exactly what Magic in the big lights should be, right? Everyone was like, I finally got to catch up on Twitter. It was so amazing to see so much support come pouring in from Twitter. Everybody was like, oh, the Asian Avenger, I hope he wins. He's being a great sport. But like, to be honest with you, it's hard to really not be a great sport when you're just like, this is everything you envision for the game you love, right? Like, this is the game you love on the big screen. This is the game you love with like, the crazy lights, everything. And of course, you're just playing the game that you love against some of the best players. Like, I'm not upset that I lost. I don't even care if I got bodied, right? Like, if I just got destroyed 0-2, dropped out of the tournament, right? Like, the thing here is, I was just amazed to be, like, on this stage and having, like, it was fun no matter what, because I welcomed the challenge. I got to get paired against some of the best players. Everybody here earned their spot. Everybody here has been working hard, playtesting, doing all this other stuff. So, no matter what, I was walking away with a smile, like ear to ear, couldn't stop playing Magic. I've never wanted to play more Magic than now. After, like, right in that moment when I lost to Piotr, I was like, I literally got up, shook his hand, got a churro, and then went up to the players lounge, sat on the laptops up there, played more Arena. And I was like, it was a bit of, I need to make top 1000 also, but like, whatever. And then like, I played Arena, and then I got paired into my next match, which is like, it was a heartbreaker. It was against Andre Stratsky. And like, if you don't know the lore behind Andre, if he declares he's retiring, it's hard to beat him. And so there was the retiring momentum, and it was a bit of a heartbreaker to see me lose my game 1 to Immortal Sun, drawing a ton of lands. But I think maybe going back, I might have played Devious Cover-Up. I should have played Devious Cover-Up on my Cry of the Carnarium, just to like bounce back my 2 acuities and try to erase. I know that like, I ended up just casting the Cry of the Carnarium just to get rid of the Fanatical Firebrand, wanting to hold the Devious Cover-Up in case, Andre tries to blow up my Lyra. I was hoping to draw any instant spell, Revitalize, Opt, just instant spell, please, or Mastermind's Acquisition. It didn't happen. I hit 6 lands. That was an L. Then the next match, I studied Andre's list. I knew for a fact that Andre had an issue dealing with Nezahal, because he only played 2 Kaya's Wrath, 3 Mortifies, 1 Contempt, and he already used about 2 to 3 of those, right? So he had he had to use about 2, I think, at that point. And that was like, all right, well, I'm going to just immediately go Mastermind's Acquisition, grab Nezahal. Andre top decks the Mortify for the Heartbreaker, and that was when I felt the game slip away, but I wasn't done. I wasn't going to just concede there. I wanted to just keep playing, and you know how that ends. That ends with a loss, but though it ended with a loss, my like, something about this event just made me want to play so much competitive Magic. And it was like, whatever it is, I want to get back there, to that stage, to the pyrotechnics, to the wonderful like casting team, to like, and like, this is to me, this is way different, because like then like somebody like the MPL who's like, yeah, whatever, I play the Pro Tour all the time, right? Like I crush people on the daily. For me, this is something bigger, right? This is like inspiring to somebody that isn't, like I would say, Richard, even if you played there, you would probably be like, Richard, come back, backwards hat, ready to play competitive Magic only. Tier 1 decks, none of that jank, get it all out of here. Wow. I'm ready to play.
The filthy casual got beaten out of you at the Mythic Invitational, Crim. But I totally get what you're saying. Like, it was such a crazy stage. We're all at home watching, rooting for you. I thought it was the best weekend of competitive Magic I've ever experienced. It was just super exciting, and watching Crim's been pretty humble about this whole experience, but he was slaying people, and he was a match win away from top 4. So he got pretty close, and just heartbreaking top decks, like, oh, Mortal Sun, then we draw 6 lands in a row. Like, oh boy. But yeah, it was a crazy weekend.
My luck ran out towards the end there. I think it was Gabriel Nassif and I, it was hilarious. Yellow Hat and I, we were just sitting and talking there. We were like, all right, well, everyone, we want to just get a photo one more time of the top 16 players and whatnot. And Gabe and I were just like, yeah, I think we might be the 2 biggest losers of the tournament. We were both 1 win away from getting in, and we were just like, they were like, smile for the photo, and we're like, haha, one win away, and we didn't get it together. We were just like cracking up and laughing, just like joking about our despair of losing.
Yeah, you guys needed the lucky article of clothing. Maguchi with his scarves, Piotr with his hat. You know what's hilarious? He like knocked off his hat and then he like immediately died and then he put it back on and then he immediately crushed. I'm like, is that real? Did that just happen?
Andrea believes that to happen too. And he's got his rituals. I'm sure everyone does. And I think my point was, leather jackets greater than scarves.
Did you have it on during the podcast? I saw you taking it off and on.
You gotta enter with it. You gotta become one with the jacket. So it's at least always on, emotionally at least. My jacket was emotionally on. and like, yeah, like that was, I didn't notice this until the end of that round against Andre. Everyone was like, that's the last US player also. I think it's because my leather jacket is a European brand.
Oh my God.
I'm just saying. Crim,
made in America. It was a crazy weekend for European Magic players, though, right? Like you said,
yeah.
They just like crushed the brackets and they like dominated the tournament.
Savage was killing it. He was my pick. I was like, dude, Savage, like his tight play there against like Piotr, like not casting, like using the Escanta, holding up Syncopate. These were really good games of Magic, right? Like, yeah, I understand people had its issues with its formatting, right? Like, and some things could be improved upon there. But from a viewer's standpoint and like from just like spectating and like Magic as a whole, like this was a very fun event to watch.
That game 3 with Piotr on Mono Red and Savitz on Esper was one of the best matches of Magic, period. So if you haven't watched it, go back and watch game 3 of that. And you'll see the difference between high level play and then like run my spell into death, lose the game. Oops, bad RNG. These two guys like played as if they knew everything and they knew nothing, right? We had the advantage of seeing both hands and knowing what was going on, but they were playing in the dark and they navigated like magnificently. It was a crazy match. So go watch it if you haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it was like everything that you imagined too. Records tied 1-1. This is it, right? So both well played by everyone played really good Magic, and it's what you expect, right? From the caliber of players that are there. People think that, oh, these people, like, I remember the narrative going, it's like, who are these people? Why are they here? And it's like, people aren't forgetting these are players signed to esports teams. Like, it's not like we just like, like, how'd I get here? What happens?
I mean,
that was Team Liquid.
I don't want to be that guy, but there were some mistakes that were more like first rounds of GP type play compared to like top 8 of Pro Tour. There was like a few things like where you're like, oh, that person just kind of lost the game because they played that in a way that wasn't that experienced or something. So there was definitely some good play, but there was definitely some questionable plays along the way as well.
But I mean, there's so some of that is like, keep in mind, these are players new to the game, right? Essentially it would be new-ish to the game, right? But they're still competitors. So, I think with more time, more preparation, more of the right thing, like, I think they will eventually become huge players in the scene.
Yeah. And I think those are things we saw on like the early days. By the time we got towards the finals, it was Magic at the highest level. And even at the Pro Tour, you see people punting through their attacks in the top 8 and just random things. We saw people like miss attacks. They clicked next too many times, misclicks and, random errors happening. But by the time we got to Sunday, I think it was high level play. And, we did see Andre Maguchi winning the tournament, right? It turns out if you're good at Magic, you can win $250,000. And that's how it played out.
Yeah.
One thing I really liked about coverage, though, was the face cams. And a lot of these epic moments, we wouldn't get the same effect on tabletop Magic because usually you get the top-down view and you kind of see people gesturing with their hands, and that's kind of it. But here, as people top-decked, the perfect answer off the top, you see their expressions and you see what's going on. Piotr was amazing with his fingers crossed, right? He would slam him with his creatures, and then he would just stand there with his fingers crossed in the air, waiting to see if his opponent had a Kaya's Wrath or whatever. And that's what we all do. It was hilarious, whether we actually show our fingers or not. That's all we're doing, right? We're like, I hope you don't get that Kaya's Wrath.
Yeah.
And, him expressing it and us seeing it on camera, I thought was hilarious.
That's
Savich with top decking like the Kaya's Wrath was perfect.
That's one thing I'm really curious about, is to see if, based on how good the coverage was there and some of the things that you were mentioning, like the face cams and so forth, if we see any of those improvements show up at Mythic Championship events. Because something like a face cam, there's no reason you can't do that in paper. They just haven't done that in paper. So it'll be interesting to see if the success of the Mythic Invitational kind of trickles over into other events, and we get some of those improvements. Of course, you're never going to be able to make it as fast as you can on Arena, because you're still going to have to shuffle your deck and stuff like that. Like, you can never make paper coverage the same or probably as good in some ways as Arena, just because of how the game is played. But I think it would be interesting, and it will be interesting to see when we have a Mythic Championship in a month from now, if we see any of those tweaks to coverage to kind of mimic the Mythic Invitational and the things that worked really well there.
Yeah, the speed of the game was crazy. I hadn't realized how fast Arena is. So remember when Arena first came out, we were comparing Arena versus Moto, and we're like, okay, the auto tapper makes things faster and, blah, blah, blah. But comparing it to paper is night and day. I want someone to do the math, but I think matches take only like 50% as long. Even day 9 alluded to it. Like, match 1 finishes. I go to the bathroom. I come back and I've already missed like 2 turns of the next match because sideboarding takes 2 seconds. Going into matches, just playing the things out. We forget how long paper actually takes, right? The game starts. You have to cut away to another feature match as people are shuffling. They sideboard. Oh, this guy has to mulligan. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Oh, mulligan again. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Start the match. It's like 10 minutes past already. It just takes forever. Doing combat math takes a long time. On Arena, they're just like assign blockers. Oh, -30, I'm dead. Right? So it was just so much faster in Arena. And that's something that I don't think paper could ever catch up to, or I don't know how, at least. Things like the camera, we can do things like getting the broadcasters. I love the casters this weekend. Day 9 and Kibler were amazing. We could get those for paper, but I don't know how you would speed things up aside from like getting those poker shufflers or whatever to like shuffles people's decks. Because shuffling just takes forever. And then this is the first time I'm like, yeah, like fetch lands suck, man. Like, imagine this was modern. It would be instant, but in paper it takes forever. So shuffling in standard, I totally get what they're saying now, because we just saw it firsthand at how fast these matches were, and you didn't get a chance to get bored. In fact, it was like so fast, like I couldn't drink any water or do anything until we got to the top 4. The top 4, they gave people time between matches to reset. And then they slowed it down a lot, and it was more of the traditional pace of Magic.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. I think the biggest takeaway, I think, is Wizards did go all in. And this was something that we had been talking about and kind of wondering about after we had the last Pro Tour Mythic Championship, where coverage was basically the same as it had always been, more or less. We were like, all right, so maybe they're like saving up all this cool stuff to do it for arena tournaments, and that definitely proved itself to be the case. Like, if you didn't watch it over the weekend, even just looking up to see like how they set up the stage and what they did with the casters, all that stuff was leaps and bounds above what Wizards traditionally has done for coverage. So I think for me, that part was really impressive. Just to know that Wizards actually does have the desire or the ability to make coverage like that if they want to, and hopefully we see more of it in the future, because it seems like once you've done it once, it should be easier to do some of that stuff the second and third time. You kind of know how it works, you know, the casters work and the setup works. So that part was definitely really exciting to me. Personally, it didn't sell me on best of 1 standard. That's still, I'm not gonna harp on it for too long, but I'm still not sold on the format. But that's not really a criticism of the coverage or the tournament itself. I think for this event, the invitational type event, best of 1 probably makes sense in a lot of ways, because you kind of want the excitement of the playing field being even to some extent. But personally, I do hope that we don't see dual standard again, because I think if there's one piece of feedback that came out from me watching social media, not just people watching the event, but a lot of players in the event, seem like if they could change one thing, it would probably be not playing dual standard for these type of tournaments in the future.
Yeah, I want to go back to the esports thing. So remember, I don't know, it was like 6 months ago, a year ago, WotC had that call and they're like, we're going to make Magic in esports. And we're all here in the podcast. He's like, okay, I don't think you guys know what that means. And then, but we're like, there's hope, right? There's a lot of money. They're like $10 million, blah, blah, blah. And then Mythic Championship 1 comes around. And it's literally the same thing we've seen for every pro tour in the last couple of years. We're like, oh God, like, this is it. Like, WotC has let us down. But they turned it all around with this. Like, for the first time, I felt we were an esport, and not only an esport, but one of the best esports, right? It was the Mythic Invitational, sponsored by HP, by Omen, sponsored by Discover, right? You had pro players playing in the event, right? You had Team Liquid present. You had TSM present, right? You had esports organizations in here, right? And this is on top of Tempo Storm, on top of our normal Magic the Gathering teams, right? Coverage was amazing. You had Day 9, like literally the face of esports himself, right? You had Kibler, like everything was just up to snuff. We hit 150,000. We were like third on Twitch. People were tuning in. They're like, what is this card game from 1995? It's still around. Like, it was just amazing. And I went from highly skeptical of WotC to terrified, right? Now we're entering a new territory, one where we're now a legitimate esports. People are going to come in poking at our game. What's going to happen, right? So I've gone from highly skeptical to like, this is amazing. Put on your seatbelts. Let's go. And I'm really excited to see what happens at the next arena tournament, and also what this means for tabletop. Like, does all of this newfound success trickle into tabletop, or does WotC double down on arena and like close the door on tabletop? It'll be super interesting to see what happens on the next couple of Mythic Championships.
Yeah, it definitely an interesting and exciting time, and definitely a lot of credit to Wizards and to all the players at the Mythic Invitational, because it was, even with me being not especially liking the format, even I will admit it was a very entertaining weekend of Magic, and I really enjoyed watching it, even though it's not my favorite format. So if I enjoyed watching it, and I'm probably one of the biggest critics of Best of One Magic, you gotta assume that most people enjoyed it as well. So well done, Wizards. Well done, players. It was super entertaining. Pretty much there's not a whole lot to really complain about. It feels like that they pulled it off, and they pulled it off really well, and it's a super exciting event. And I honestly didn't know that Wizards had it in them. Just based on playing Magic and watching tournaments for like a decade now, I didn't think that Wizards had the ability to throw a tournament like this and pull it off successfully, and they did. So tons of credit to Wizards.
Yeah, and well done, Crim, for representing our game and for showing the world what true Magic players are like. Like, a lot of people, when they take 30 to the face, would be super salty, but Crim was just enjoying every moment, and, bad beats. Let's suit up this, shuffle up the cards, go to the next game. Like, that's what Magic is all about, right? And I think you showed a lot of people that from other card games where they may be a lot saltier, right?
I think there's an unwritten rule that if you are the double Esper player, you're not allowed to get salty. That's just a rule of Magic.
Hey, like, I also what was I gonna do, right? There's 33 damage coming to me, so
I gotta ask you before we move on, because we gotta talk tons of War of Spark too. I gotta ask you, Crim, how did you find the matchup part of it? So we saw the most common pairing was basically Esper with an aggro deck, either mono red or mono white. So when you were sitting down for a match, were you really hoping to pair your decks in a certain direction, or were you pretty fine no matter how the matchups broke down?
There was a direction that I wanted the matchups to go. I wanted my Dovin's Acuity to line up with non-traditional Esper. But otherwise, I could still play a game with normal Esper, but the thing is, I would rather just play regular Esper versus regular Esper and then Acuity against any other creature deck. Whereas people brought like aggressive in a control deck, which helps out in the situation where, let's say in the case I get paired against Gregor's, right? Kowalski. Like, in that situation, that was the one time where I was like, I wish I had an aggro deck instead of 2 Esper decks, because I cannot beat Temur Reclamation regardless. So at least I can try to take a shot at trying to beat him with like an aggro deck of sorts.
So question 2, follow-up. Did you have any game 3s where you had to actually play the guessing game? I know you mentioned one where you kind of were like, okay, I'm just playing Acuity because I like it against both of my opponent's decks. Did you have any where you had to actually do the game theory, like, are they going to pick control? Are they going to pick aggro? What do I pick to match up? How did that go?
That was that was actually, it happened real early on. I think it was against Marcio Carvalho. I was thinking, well, he has Esper, but he also has mono white. And what kind of hand am I allowed to keep, right? Because it doesn't matter from Marcio's point, right? Because either way, he knows what I'm playing, right? If you're on double Esper, it's known that you can keep either, if you're on the control deck, you can keep a slow hand that's more counterspell heavy. You need to keep an aggressive hand. You know what you're doing going into the game plan. For me, I had to play the guessing game of it. He could like big brain me, galaxy brain me out of this, and I keep a handful of counterspells, not a lot of cheap interaction, and then it's just mono white, right? So I had to do that a lot. And then, so game 3, I ended up just rolling normal Esper control because I was worried about it and I wasn't too sure. And luckily I was able to draw into some board wipe, like I was able to draw into, a board wipe and then, in the first turn, which allowed for me to like play the match either way, right? Like if Marcio's got a bunch of like I had enough counter spells and thought erasures to disrupt him, but I also had a board wipe. So that was the hardest thing, mostly just figuring out what kind of openers I can keep, because my opponent could just be on the aggro game plan or on the Esper game plan.
Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense.
All right. So last thing we want to talk about over the weekend was throughout the entire weekend, they were giving out arena codes to get the new card styles. So, they're posted on Twitter. We'll post them in the article and in the comments, but I'll just list them off here for, everyone. So starter styles, Parallax Potion, Foil Fungus, Shiny Goblin Pirate, Sparkle Druid. So those are all the new codes, and they get you the new Parallax Effect cards, and then the old cards the old codes that work are Play Ravnica and Play Allegiance. So in Arena, you go to your store, and in the store, there's a place to enter a coupon code. You put them in, and you should get a bunch of free stuff.
And I think that brings us to the end of episode 217 of the MTG Goldfish podcast.
Yeah, this episode was super long, so let's split it into 2, and we're gonna record the War of the Spark spoilers and trailer right now, so it'll go up immediately after this episode. But for people's collections and they don't want to listen to a 2-hour podcast, we'll split it up into 2 parts.
All right, so that brings us to the end of episode 217, double episode this week. So Richard, Crim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening, and thanks one more time to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. Check them out at spikesacademy.com and get 10% off with the code Goldfish. So yeah, this is a crew signing out momentarily. We'll be right back with the next episode.